Welcome to The Beat. I'm Melissa Murray in for Ari Melber. We start tonight with the scandal consuming the Trump White House as MAGA leaders, top Democrats, and nonpartisan journalists demand answers about the Epstein files. This is new and dangerous territory for Donald Trump, as for the first time, he appears unable to control his own base. This morning, D.C. woke up to headlines like these. MAGA revolt. Trump discovers MAGA has no off switch. Trump and MAGA are no longer the same thing. Images of MAGA supporters literally burning their red MAGA hats are going viral online. And all of this comes a day after Trump berated Republicans as, quote, stupid and foolish for wanting more information about the disgraced financier who died by suicide while in federal custody. Today, Trump's secretary was bombarded with Epstein questions at this press conference.
Does the president believe that justice has been served in the Epstein case?
Does he have knowledge or an understanding of what is in the files related to Epstein that have not been released? Has the White House been directly in touch with some of the MAGA influencers that are still not satisfied?
The president said that he floated the idea of a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. Can you confirm that?
Do you know what the president's reaction was to Mike Johnson saying that he wants additional files released? The Epstein files.
Caroline, one more.
Elizabeth,
will the
go
president consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell
Elizabeth.
if the Epstein case is a hoax?
Was there a conversation with Mike Johnson about that following his comments?
There's been a lot of discussion about the Epstein files, the president's comments yesterday calling it a hoax. Can you clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
An absolute barrage of questions with no relief in sight. Politico writes this, quote, Trump is like a magician who has locked himself in a straitjacket, only to find that he's lost his ability to maneuver out of it and finds his audience turning on him. Among those now speaking out are Trump's former vice president, Mike Pence, as well as top GOP senators and the MAGA broadcasters.
I think the time has come for the administration to release all of the files regarding Jeffrey Epstein's investigation and prosecution.
Maybe I'm just getting old and forgetting things, but I could have sworn that we had people campaigning, and if I get elected, we're going to release the files, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Release the damn files. Get over it.
It's the administration and their handling of this, which is why everyone's talking about it. It didn't have to be handled this way. It's been abysmal.
I am trying to get you to take the political gun out of your mouth. You already blown both your feet off. And now you got it shoved in your mouth. I'm like, will you please take that out of your mouth? You're like, shut up. Don't talk about it. You have put the gun in your mouth and ours collectively. Stop it. Stop it.
And in a rare display of bipartisanship, top Democrats have also gotten in on the act, hammering Trump on the Epstein question.
For years, Donald Trump and the MAGA movement have railed on about the Epstein files. But now, a complete reversal. Trump is straight up gaslighting the American public.
The president had run on a campaign with a promise to expose the Epstein files. Now he and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, say, nope, nothing to investigate. When it comes to Epstein and sex trafficking, all these claims are just ludicrous.
Amid these calls for greater transparency, there's also new scrutiny on an unexplained move from the Trump DOJ. Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, was until recently a longtime federal prosecutor who worked on a number of high-profile cases, including the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's associate. This week, Trump's DOJ fired her. Critics say it appears to be an effort to intimidate perceived enemies. Today, in a farewell email to her colleagues, Comey said that the DOJ letter informing her of her termination provided no reason for her discharge. In the email, which MSNBC has obtained, Comey issued a sharp warning to her colleagues in the Southern District of New York, saying, quote, if a career prosecutor can be fired without reason, fear may seep into the decisions of those who remain. Do not let that happen. Fear is the tool of a tyrant wielded to suppress independent thought. Instead of fear, let this moment fuel the fire that already burns at the heart of this place, a fire of righteous indignation at abuses of power, of commitment to seek justice for victims, of dedication to truth above all else. And that is where we start tonight. Donald Trump under fire from the MAGA base amid broader warnings about a presidential power grab. Joining me now is Barrett Berger, a former federal prosecutor from the Southern District of New York, and Aisha Mills, political strategist and former resident fellow at Harvard's Kennedy School of Politics. Aisha, you saw Donald Trump's press secretary faced with a barrage of questions over the Epstein files. Why can't Donald Trump figure out how to defuse this bomb?
Because Donald Trump doesn't want to. I mean, here's the thing. I just want to acknowledge for everybody who's watching this that we have literally been on like a week and a half distraction from what's really going on in America right now. Donald Trump is gutting the government. They literally just rescinded $9 billion in foreign aid. They're trying to shut down public broadcasting. They're taking Medicare from people, Medicaid from people. And here's where we are, is we're talking about this. We know that Donald Trump doesn't actually care about the victims, about those poor girls who are human trafficked. I think right now we need to be focusing on actually the victims of this and trying to get justice for them. And that's not something that Donald Trump is ever going to talk about. Ever.
I don't disagree, but he is losing his base over this. Like, there are folks in the MAGA faithful who are angry and they are baying for blood. Barrett, do you think the DOJ actually has more information than they're letting on here, and that there's something to these calls for transparency?
Well, I'm sure the DOJ has, thousands and thousands of pages of information that they produced in discovery. But the problem is not all information is sufficient to be released to the public. Here you're going to have hours and hours of child pornography that was captured on these recordings. You're going to have information that identifies victims, that gives personal stuff about them. You're going to have information that was gained through judicial process, like a grand jury, that simply cannot be disclosed according to law. So I think the big problem we have here is one of an explanation, explaining exactly why certain things can't be released, what the basis is. It may not satisfy people who've really had their hearts set on getting their hands on this, but just because they can't see it doesn't mean they should.
Well, that's a great question, Aisha. So there's a lot of information here for lots of different reasons. Much of it likely cannot be released, but we are seeing people online burning their MAGA hats. And these are people who are deeply with the president. It seems like they would be receptive to an explanation, any explanation from this man whom they revere. Why won't this just go away? Why can't they give the explanation?
Well, listen, I think that Donald Trump, we all know, actually, let me not, say, I think Donald Trump is guilty of a variety of things and hasn't been held accountable for them, period. What his base does and our distraction with that is literally that. What I'm interested in, be it Republican or be it Democrat, is why isn't anybody talking about the fact that if they were so riled up about this Epstein case and getting justice for these victims, why is Donald Trump defunding, literally just completely dismantle the Violence Against Women Act and completely defunded all support for people who have been trafficked, for human trafficking? There's so much that could actually happen that would be with regards to policy that would actually support and protect people that we could be talking about. And right now it just feels more like a political circus that I don't think is going anywhere.
So, Barrett, this is a political circus, and it actually doesn't feel like Donald Trump is necessarily in the middle of it. The one person who does seem to be getting the brunt of all of this is Attorney General Pamela Jo Bondi. How much trouble is she in from this base that's calling for her ouster?
Seemingly a lot. It seems like she still has the support of the president, but as we know, you have the support of the president until you don't. And to Aisha's point, the fact that anyone who actually cares about protecting victims and standing up for them and doing something about sex trafficking, the person who cared the most about doing that was the person they just fired. Maureen Comey, more than anyone else, was somebody who not only, talked the talk of wanting to protect victims, but spent the last decade doing the hard work to do that, not just in the Epstein case, but as we just saw over the last 2 months in the Combs case. This is somebody who's dedicated—
This is the P. Diddy trial.
Correct. Yeah. So this is somebody who has just dedicated her career to standing up for victims, to doing the work that people are talking about. And the fact that they've fired her while also saying we care about this is just wildly inconsistent.
And keep in mind that this president has spent most of his life trying to avoid accountability for the things that he's done against women. So here we are.
Well, let's go to Maureen Comey. Barrett, what do you make of this? This seems to be a very unusual step, an unorthodox step to fire a career prosecutor who has never had any complaints about her performance. But she also happens to be the daughter of someone who has, even in the last couple of months, been the target of a lot of ribbing from the Trump loyalists. What's actually going on here?
I mean, on one hand, it seems very consistent with the pattern that we've seen. We've seen plenty of not only DOJ folks being fired, but across the government, we've seen sort of these wide sales. This one's different because it is so individually targeted to her, with really no connection to her actual work as a prosecutor, at least what we know so far. I mean, it seems like from her resignation email, this was totally unexpected from her, and the letter gives no explanation other than, citing to Article 2, which is just, the executive's, I guess, authority to do so, but really gives no analysis or rationale for this.
Right.
This is really, it feels just so personal. And I said before, it just, to me, strikes me more because of her last name than anything that she has ever done as a prosecutor.
As a former prosecutor yourself, what do you make of her farewell email to her colleagues at the Southern District of New York?
It was a wonderful email. It was, very righteous, talked a lot about what everyone, not just in the Southern District, but I think throughout U.S. attorneys' offices in the country, what we sort of embodied, which was this idea of prosecuting cases without fear or favor.
And the Southern District, that has been its credo for a long time, the sovereign district of New York.
And you need that ethos because what you're doing is prosecuting people regardless of their political party. The Southern District of New York has brought cases against Republicans as often as it's brought cases against Democrats. It's brought cases against powerful people and people with no power. So they really live up to this credo. And the fact that she cites that and really seems to be saying this is now in jeopardy is pretty striking.
All right, Ayesha, let's figure all of this out. I know that you think this is a huge distraction. I think it likely is a big distraction from some of the other things that are going on. Article 2 unchecked and unabashed here. But how much steam do you think is left in this story? And what does it mean for Donald Trump and this base that has literally followed him to the ends of the earth at this point?
Listen, we just heard from Congressman Garcia, Robert Garcia, who was on the previous hour and is doing all that he can as the ranking on Oversight Committee to get some accountability, right? The Democrats are trying to figure out how to utilize this moment to continue to remind the American public that this guy is not necessarily, up to snuff in the way that he manages all things. I, though, am, it's not that long ago that we watched the impeachment trial happen, or trials, plural. And we saw all of this brought out in front of the American public, and his base didn't run necessarily then, right? And so I have to say that I am not that optimistic that this conversation is going to lead to any transformation or change or restriction around the bounds of Donald Trump to continue to do harm to this nation. I just don't think that the Democrats have the juice to make anything happen, and I don't think that his base officially falls out when it comes to the midterms in the way that we all prayed that they would.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you, ladies. Coming up, we will go live to Capitol Hill as Republicans try to gut funding for NPR and PBS. And later, our interview with the head of Planned Parenthood about their fight with the Trump administration over women's health and women's rights. But first, how MAGA is literally laughing at Trump's Epstein mess. We're back in just 90 seconds.
Actually, there was supposed to be an Epstein joke here, but as it got deleted, must have probably deleted itself, right? Probably never existed, actually. Let's move on as a country and ignore that.
That was comedian Shane Gillis joking about Trump and the Epstein files. But some in Donald Trump's base think this is no laughing matter. Let's take a listen to some of the phone calls coming into right-wing radio shows.
We have a president who tells us to move on from Epstein, says it doesn't matter. And yet he still talks about the 2020 election fraud. He talks about the Hunter Biden laptop.
This is a sad, sad day in America. This cemented permanent deep state power.
What about justice for these young ladies who were trafficking? What about their justice?
These Epstein files, we were told that there was going to be released. And the fact that it's suddenly gone away and he's trying to gaslight us is like a punch in the gut to MAGA.
I'm concerned about being able to trust Donald Trump to keep his word.
That's a snapshot of Right Wing Radio, a core outlet for the MAGA base. And new polling from Reuters shows that 62% of Republicans say that the Trump administration is concealing information about Epstein's clients. And among all Americans, that number jumps to a staggering 70%. Joining me now to discuss it all is Margaret Carlson, the editor-at-large at Semaphore and a longtime Washington, D.C. observer. Margaret, what do you make of the reaction here from Trump supporters like those radio callers?
Well, they're very used to conspiracy theories. They've been fed them a long time, and that's how Trump started out. He started out as somebody who believed that Obama wasn't born here, and he carried birther all the way to the White House. So they're trained to believe this sort of thing, and then when it's taken away, they get mad. And now Trump's mad at them for getting mad at him. And he doesn't get mad at them that often. And that's what makes me curious. Why is he this mad about that? I don't know. It's not going to be because there's something about Hunter Biden's laptop in there. There's something in the Epstein files that he's afraid of. He doesn't want all of it out there. And, he's always denied his friendship with Epstein, saying, oh, well, we fell out. But wow, before they fell out, they were really pretty good friends. They spent a lot of time together, each other's houses. Somewhere it came out that in Jeffrey Epstein's phone book, he had 14 numbers for Donald Trump. My daughter only has 2 numbers for me. So 14 seems a little excessive for somebody that you're not that good a friend with. And it just stirs up a lot of stuff that I'm not sure it's a distraction. The people are pretty aware of what happened with the beautiful bill and how it's actually his followers, they're going to suffer from it. But this sort of thing looks like a betrayal to them. And it's brought out in him, that calling them stupid. Isn't that, I haven't heard that, Melissa. I haven't heard him turn on his followers so personally. Have you?
I haven't. It actually raises an important question. You're right. It's very rare to see him angry at his base, but it's also incredibly rare to see his base angry at him. So how worried should the administration be about these polls that show that most Republicans think that the government is actually concealing information from the public?
Well, it's damaging. I think they think that, they swallow some things like the animals, the immigrants eating pets in Ohio without question, but that everything's been released in Epstein, they're not accepting. And I'm curious why, how much is right-wing radio stirring this up and why? And your prior guest said maybe it is a distraction because they're losing Medicaid and there are more measles in the country and immigrants are being swept away to Alcatraz. There are all kinds of other things that they could be worried about, and some of them are. They're beginning to be worried about the way he's rounding up immigrants. But here's this thing over here that's attracting so much attention, and in part, don't you find that if you tell your kids, oh no, you can't have that, then they really want that thing. Yeah. And Trump said, you can't have the Epstein files. You have everything there is to have. Yeah. And now they really, really want it. And he's making enemies among his base. Burning a MAGA hat, one of the comedians said, well, remind them to take it off their heads. But it's pretty out there to be burning a MAGA hat, which is like a shrine to Donald Trump on the top of your head.
Well, that is not the only thing late night comics have to say about all this. Let's take a listen at some other clips.
It's boring. Oh, yeah, what's interesting about a global pedophile sex ring that involves the richest people in the world that I might be covering up in my own involvement in? Snooze alerts!
Sex, cults, and murder are famously dull. That's why they call that movie Eyes Wide Shut, because everyone was asleep.
Wouldn't you guys rather hear about golf?
Margaret, we have just a few moments left, but I just want to get your take on this. How much power does this story have beyond MAGA? Is this just going to be the stuff of late night punchlines, or does it have legs?
You know, there was a piece in the Washington Post op-ed section today that said Democrats really don't have to do very much about this, that it has innate interest of people on both sides, but in particular, the MAGA side. And so it will have a life of its own. Democrats don't need to stoke it. We don't know what's in the files, and maybe nothing else is going to come out. But in the meantime, Trump's behavior is coming out in a way that is unappealing to his base, and that could have some long-lasting ramifications.
All right, Margaret Carlson, thank you so much for those insights. Later in the show, a pregnant American woman is speaking out after ICE detained her husband as he tried to pick up his daughter. Also tonight, the president of Planned Parenthood will be here live and she will be talking about the group's new lawsuit against the Trump administration. But up first, I talked to a top House Democrat on the crisis that Donald Trump is facing over the Epstein files. It's up next.
What is the Trump administration hiding from the American people? That's the question that needs to be answered.
Trump allies on Capitol Hill are doing their part to keep the Epstein files under wraps. This week, House Republicans blocked 2 efforts by Democrats to force a debate on releasing the files. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson is trying to backpedal from his apparent break with Donald Trump on the Epstein case. Johnson first called for the files to be released and then later said he was misinterpreted.
I'm for transparency. It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
I have been misquoted and misrepresented on all of that. Go watch the interview I did with Benny Johnson. I'm pretty clear. I mean, we're for transparency. I'm saying the same thing outside of sanctions.
All of this is leading to what we showed you earlier. Trump supporters literally burning their MAGA hats and posting the videos of them doing so online. Meanwhile, while most of us were sleeping, Senate Republicans passed a bill to claw back over $9 billion in funding that they had already approved. The bill rescinds $8 billion in foreign aid and $1 billion in funds for NPR and PBS. To break it all down is Pennsylvania Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. Congresswoman Dean, thanks for coming here and talking with us about this tonight. Seems like the House Republicans are pretty much willing to follow this president's lead on the Epstein files. The one rare exception seems to be GOP Congressman Thomas Massie, who is pushing for a full House vote to demand the release of the files. Do you think this play will work and the files will be released?
Good to be with you, Melissa. Thank you for having me. And I don't know if that will work, but you see that it's creating quite an uproar here on Capitol Hill, even an uproar in terms of what is our schedule. Can we continue our work? Will we be here next week? I'm newly on the Appropriations Committee. We've got a lot of work to do. We have markups next week. We're in a markup right now, all day today. What baffles me the most, and I'm beginning to understand it from your reporting and other reports that I'm reading, is how this has turned so badly on the president that his supporters are grievously upset. But I think about it. I was just looking at that barbecue of the hats, Trump MAGA hats. They have been fed a barbecue of conspiracy theories. They have been told to believe the very worst of every story, whether or not it is true. And don't get me wrong, the Epstein affair is grotesque. He was an extraordinarily grotesque predator, criminal predator. How long did that go on? Who knew about it? How broad were those circles? So I think it's really simple. I'm not down a rabbit hole. It is either there is information there about his manner of death that they are not fully revealing, not being transparent about, and there is more information about client files and other, whether it's videotaped evidence. Why I think it should come forward is they said they had it. Pam Bondi in February said it was sitting on her desk. Reveal it. Otherwise, they were lying then or they're lying now. Which is it? And in the meantime, they've got a very upset base. And you see the president unraveling over this. He shows that he feels very threatened by the demand for transparency, even from the Speaker of the House.
Well, speaking of the business of the chamber, the House is about to cast a final vote on this new package of cuts to foreign aid, as well as rescissions to NPR and PBS. If these cuts become law, what will be the effect? And is all of this Epstein talk an effort to distract from the very real fiscal consequences of those legislative actions?
Well, I don't think this is a distraction that the president wants. I'll tell you that. I think the president does want this rescissions package. He wants these cuts to NPR, to education. We're dealing with education cuts, frozen funds right in my own state of Pennsylvania, right in my own school districts, funds that we as appropriators have passed. But consider what they're doing with NPR. So many people rely upon NPR public broadcasting for the education of their children, for alerts for themselves, for safety, security, for weather, and other things. Uh, Take that along with the cuts to Voice of America, cuts to education, the wish to shut down, eliminate the Department of Education. What does that tell us about this administration? A, they want to take over the power of appropriators, which is our Article 1 power, which they should not be able to do, and we are struggling and fighting against it. But B, they don't want an informed, educated electorate. This is Orwellian, folks. This is an administration that does not want you to know the truth, because look what happened. Now they're all coming back to fight the president because they were sowing the seeds of these horrible, horrible tales.
Last quick point, Congresswoman Dean. You just mentioned that Congress it appropriates these funds, and now the president is cutting them, including those cuts to education. Is this a lawful position for the president to take, or is this a violation of the separation of powers?
It is a violation of the Constitution. I'd love your opinion on this. I know you're learned in these areas. It is a violation of the Constitution. I want to tell you, Melissa, I told you I'm newly on appropriations, but today when we came into the markup, returned to the podium, to the dais, is a brass plaque that recites Article 1, Section 7. We have the power of the purse. The president does not. Mr. Vogt does not. And so whether it is past appropriations that have been passed or that moving forward, the power of the purse is ours. What the president is doing, whether freezing funds or cutting funds, is unconstitutional outside of Article 1, outside of his own Article 2 power. Can I say one last thing on
Very
the
quickly.
Epstein matter?
Sure.
I want
very quickly.
justice for those who were harmed. That's the most important thing, justice.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you, Congresswoman Madeline Dean. Coming up next, Barack and Michelle Obama are getting personal and political in a new podcast. But first, Planned Parenthood is warning that Trump's budget cuts could jeopardize health care for more than 1 million patients. We will have the group's CEO right here next. Donald Trump's new budget could have a lasting impact on another critical matter, women's health care. Language in the new budget targets Planned Parenthood, although it doesn't mention the organization by name. The Washington Post reports that the budget law includes, quote, a 1-year Medicaid funding ban for healthcare providers that perform abortions and receive more than $800,000 in federal reimbursements for other services.
It could not seek reimbursement from Medicaid for services like contraception care, gender-affirming care, STI treatment, testing, cancer screening, and the list goes on and on. And so the estimate nationally from the Planned Parenthood Federation is that about 200 Planned Parenthood health centers across the country would likely close.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked that part of the law, granting Planned Parenthood and its patients a temporary reprieve. Joining me now to discuss these developments is Alexis McGill-Johnson, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood. Alexis, this bill does not mention your organization by name, but wow, it speaks of an organization that provides abortions and receives over $800,000 in federal reimbursements each year. It seems pretty targeted. What are the stakes going to be for your patients, many of whom are low income or are located in rural areas where healthcare providers are already more limited?
Well, that is correct, Melissa. And look, 1 out of 2 patients at Planned Parenthood use Medicaid for their health insurance, and the majority of our health centers are in rural or medically underserved communities. So the impact of this very targeted attack on abortion providers, namely Planned Parenthood, is quite devastating. As you reported in your reporting, it puts this bill puts nearly 200 health centers at risk of closure, and 1 in 4 abortion providers essentially at risk of not being able to provide access to care. And so, what that means, right, is that they have found a way to enact a backdoor abortion ban through this legislation that we find, quite frankly, blatantly unconstitutional by targeting us and by attacking us simply because we are strong advocates for reproductive freedom.
So this is a really important point, this idea that this bill is really a backdoor abortion ban. The Washington Post reports that almost all of the clinics that would be affected by this ban are in states where abortion remains legal. And is that the point here? I mean, is this basically a way for them to get at Planned Parenthood providers and other abortion providers in blue states where the procedure is still permitted right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's the intent of the law. The intent of the law, as I said, is a backdoor abortion ban. It is an attempt to deny providers, right? Planned Parenthood providers, just like any other providers, get reimbursed for the services that they provide. And in the case of Medicaid, which does not provide insurance for abortion, except for in the most extreme cases, you are essentially saying you're going to deny people access to birth control, to STI testing and treatment, to wellness exams, to breast cancer screenings, and using their Medicaid dollars, insurance dollars, in order to pay for that. So I think it's twofold. It is one, both an attempt to try to enact a backdoor abortion ban, even though this administration said that they were not going to try for a national abortion ban. And it's also, I believe, I would say, a recognition of Planned Parenthood's power, right? It is a targeted attack on an opponent of this administration because they have had so many attacks on reproductive freedom, and we were standing up for our patients.
Well, let's go back to this point about this is an administration that said it wasn't going to enact a ban, and now this looks like a ban. Let's talk about some other people who have said some things and seem to be going back on this. In 2022, when the Supreme Court overruled Roe versus Wade in Dobbs, it said it was returning the question of abortion to the states. But this seems like a way to have a uniform nationwide prohibition on abortion. The red states that have already limited abortion access, and now this backdoor ban that you speak of. Was this always the plan? Is this what choice across the country is going to look like going forward?
I think it is always a plan. And, excuse me if I invoke, our dear beloved late sister, Bell Hooks, right? She said, sometimes people try to destroy you precisely because they recognize your power, not because they don't want to see it, but because they actually do see it and they don't want it to exist. That is what I think is happening right here. Not only the incredibly powerful life-affirming care that Planned Parenthood provides in community for patients across this country, and daring to stand in defense of that care. That is what this bill is designed to. That this provision is expressly designed to do that, to target Planned Parenthood explicitly, and whoever else may be caught up in it, so be it. But it is not actually going after sexual and reproductive health care. It is not actually going after Medicaid as it relates to broad sexual and reproductive health care. It is trying to force a separation between those of us who provide and defend abortion, and and our ability to get reimbursed, again, in the same way every other healthcare provider does in this country. And that is really what we find to be unconstitutional in this matter.
All right. Alexis McGill Johnson, thank you so much. Up next, I'm going to talk to an expectant mother who is caught in the crosshairs of the Trump deportation efforts. Her husband has been detained just months before their baby is due. That's up next. Trump's deportation agenda is hitting families, including families of American citizens. A 35-year-old father was detained in Washington state just months before his wife, who is an American citizen, is scheduled to give birth. Guilherme Lemes Silva, who goes by Guy, is originally from Brazil. He is an artist with no known criminal record. His wife says that they were in the process of legalizing his residency and renewing his work permit. According to his wife, Silva was on his way to pick up his daughter when multiple unmarked ICE vehicles containing masked agents stopped him. He told his wife the agents refused to show him a warrant and made jokes during his arrest.
They made me show all my tattoos and said if I was related with gangs, but never been related to any gangs. I really hope I can get out of here very soon because I have my gun to get out.
Silva is being held at a detention center in Tacoma and has a court hearing later this month. Joining me now is Rachel Leidig, Guy's wife. She joins us from Tacoma, Washington, where she just visited her husband in person. Rachel, thank you so much for being here during what I know is a difficult time for you and your family. First, can I ask, how are you doing?
Thank you for having me on the show, Melissa. We really appreciate you guys spreading the word and showing everything. I'm okay. I was able to fly up this morning from Sausalito and was able to go to the detainment center to visit Guy today. It's really hard to see him behind glass. And just know that this is what we're going through right now. We're very hopeful. We have a lot of support behind us, but there's also a lot of people in the detention center, some that do have valid green cards, that are still being held with court dates that are 6 months out, that can't get adequate representation. So we feel very grateful that we have this. And we were able to file Guy's I-485 yesterday, which is the application for green card. And on Friday, after he was detained, I was able to apply for the I-130, which is the alien relative petition.
When you were visiting him in the detention center, were you able to get a sense of the conditions there for Guy as well as some of the other detainees?
Yeah, it's not great. Immediately when I walked in, the person at the front desk was just very authoritarian, very strict with everything. I was told that I could see Guy twice today, once in the visiting time this morning and once in the visiting time this evening. He refused to let me come back this evening. I talked to a supervisor, and then when I talked to the supervisor, he held me waiting to see Guy for about an hour and a half and let everyone else go ahead of me because I asked to speak with someone. Guy said that their food is not great. They try to, if you don't have a family member on the outside that can give you money into your account, you have to kind of save each meal and ration out so you're feeling better. He said it's not great in there, but the people that he's met have been amazing, and he's making friends in there. They're staying strong and going further, but we just feel my heart breaks for our situation, but my heart breaks for many people out there that don't speak the language, that don't have advocates on the outside, that are fighting for such a broken immigration system. There's no justice here and there's no due process.
So can you take me back to the day that your husband was detained? How did you find out? And what went through your mind as you are getting this news, knowing that you were a few months away from giving birth?
So I was at work and I was off getting tea. I looked down at my phone and it was ICE Detention Center from Washington, which was 360, and my heart dropped. Guy called me at 12:45 on Friday, the 11th of July, and he had been detained around 10 a.m. He was in Bellingham, Washington. It's just everything, I was in such shock.
Do you have any idea why he was targeted?
Yeah, we have a feeling. We were going through a custody battle with his ex-wife, and so we feel that she tipped off the ICE agency because where he was on San Juan Island, no, ICE doesn't come there unless they're tipped off. And so we have a feeling that's why this happened. So unfortunately, we were in the situation that we're in, and we're just trying to get through it as best we can with all the support and love that we have. But the ICE agents were very rough with him. They were all masked when they they were laughing behind his back as he was getting arrested, saying that they were glad they didn't make the news this time. He asked for the warrant. Guy was a lawyer in Brazil, so he knows his rights. He asked to see the warrant, and they said that they didn't need to show it, and they just took him off in the vehicle. He said that he requested one officer to please be kind to him because he was being very compliant and not doing anything. And the officer said to him that he could be his best friend or punch him in the face. So it's just, this is the kind of behavior that these agents are taking when detaining people. And he's not a criminal. Many of these people aren't criminals.
You've been working with an immigration attorney. What are the next steps in your husband's case?
So Guy's court hearing is the 29th. We're petitioning for a change of venue. So hopefully he'll get out on bond on the 29th is what we're shooting for, and a change of venue down to San Francisco Bay Area where we have our house in Sausalito. So that he can be with me and the baby. I'm 7 months pregnant. Last week I was just stressed about all the things we needed to have for having a baby and me being a first-time mother, and now it's compounded by so much more. So I just need my husband back. Our son needs our husband back. My stepdaughter needs her daddy back. You know, they're best friends, and they just need each other. We all need him.
All right, Rachel Leidig, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. We are desperately sorry for these circumstances, and we wish you and your family well.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
All right, we will be right back after a short break. Former President Barack Obama appeared on his wife Michelle's podcast for the first time. The hour-long conversation covered everything from politics to parenting. They also tackled those divorce rumors that have been swirling online, especially in right-wing circles.
Wait, you guys liked each other?
Oh, yeah, really, huh?
That's so
the rumor mill. It's my husband, y'all.
Should send me back.
There hasn't been one moment in our marriage where I thought about quitting my man. And we've had some really hard times, so we have had a lot of fun times, a lot of adventures, and I have become a better person because of the man I'm married to.
Okay, don't make me cry now. Right at the beginning of the show.
All right, hashtag couples goals. That does it for me.